Welcome to the channel, where cinema's darkest secrets come to light. The 1990s weren't just about Britpop, Cool Britannia, and romantic comedies. Beneath the surface, British cinema was fighting its own war against censorship boards, moral panic, political pressure, and public outrage. Some films were cut beyond recognition. Others were delayed for years, and a few were nearly buried forever. Tonight, we're diving into 13 British banned or censored movies from 1990. Films that challenged authority, shocked audiences, and forced the UK's film regulators to draw a line in the sand. Why were they targeted? What made them so controversial? And how did they change British film history? Let's begin point one. A Clockwork Orange, although released decades earlier, the early 1990s marked a turning point in the UK availability of A Clockwork Orange. Directed by Stanley Kubrick, the film had been voluntarily withdrawn from British cinemas at Kubrick's request after copycat crime allegations and intense media pressure. Throughout the 1980s and into the early 90s, it remained unavailable in the UK. By 1990, debate intensified over whether the film should return. Critics argued censorship had turned it into forbidden mythology, while supporters of the ban cited its disturbing themes. The British Board of Film Classification, BBFC, faced growing scrutiny over artistic freedom versus social responsibility. Its eventual re-release later in the decade marked a shift toward modernized classification standards. 2. The Exorcist, another major controversy, resurfaced in 1990 around The Exorcist. Though a 1973 American film, it remained effectively banned on UK home video due to video nasty era panic. The BBFC refused a video certificate throughout the 1980s. In the early 90s, public demand grew for its reclassification. Religious groups and conservative campaigners had long criticized the film's themes, arguing it was psychologically disturbing. However, by 1990, cultural attitudes were shifting. Film scholars and critics increasingly defended it as a serious artistic work. It was eventually approved for home release in 1999, symbolizing the end of Britain's most restrictive censorship period. 3. Visions of Ecstasy, one of Britain's most famous censorship cases, Visions of Ecstasy, remained banned throughout the 1990s. Directed by Nigel Wingrove, this short art film explored religious imagery in an unconventional way. The BBFC denied its certification under blasphemy laws still active at the time. The case escalated to the European Court of Human Rights, making it a landmark legal battle about freedom of expression. The controversy wasn't about violence, but about religious sensitivity. The ban remained in place for decades, highlighting how UK's censorship extended beyond crime concerns into moral and theological territory. 4. The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover, directed by Peter Greenaway. This visually stylized drama faced heavy cuts and classification debates entering the 1990s. Though not outright banned, it was considered highly controversial due to its provocative themes and political undertones. Released amid Thatcher-era tensions, critics viewed it as an allegory of power and corruption. Censorship concerns focused on tone rather than explicit imagery. Some local councils in the UK refused screenings. Its divisive reception revealed the tension between art house cinema and mainstream sensibilities at the time. 5. Scum, directed by Alan Clark. Scum had been banned from television in its original 1977 BBC version. By 1990, its legacy still fueled censorship debates. The film portrayed harsh realities within a borstal institution. Authorities initially argued it was too disturbing for broadcast. However, as the 90s began, critics reevaluated it as social commentary rather than exploitation. Its journey from suppression to recognition showed how public perception evolves and how censorship often reflects political discomfort. 7. Natural Born Killers, directed by Oliver Stone. This film was heavily cut in the UK. British authorities were particularly sensitive to its depiction of media influence and crime glorification. During the 1990s, Britain faced concerns about youth violence and media impact. The BBFC required edits before approval. Critics debated whether censorship protected society or restricted artistic critique. The controversy reflected growing anxiety about violent imagery in the video era. 8. The Last Temptation of Christ, directed by Martin Scorsese. This film faced protests across the UK entering the 1990s. Some councils attempted to block screenings due to religious objections. Although passed by the BBFC, local authorities had power to override decisions. Demonstrations highlighted tensions between secular governance and religious activism. By 1990, it symbolized a broader cultural battle over artistic interpretation of sacred subjects. 9. Reservoir Dogs, directed by Quentin Tarantino. This crime thriller reignited video nasty fears in Britain. Though passed with an 18 rating, police seizures occurred in some areas under obscenity concerns. The early 90s still carried remnants of 80s moral panic. Some campaigners argued the film's style glamorized violence. However, film scholars praised its nonlinear storytelling and dialogue. The debate reflected generational divides over media literacy. 10. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, though made in 1986. Its UK release was delayed and heavily scrutinized in the 1990s. The BBFC initially rejected it due to tone and realism. When reconsidered, officials debated whether it crossed into exploitation. By the early 90s, evolving classification guidelines allowed it to pass with restrictions. The film became a case study in how regulatory standards shift over time. 11. The Devils, directed by Ken Russell. The Devils remained heavily cut in the UK well into the 1990s. Religious imagery and political themes triggered decades of censorship battles. Film historians argued it was one of the most artistically ambitious British films ever made. Yet full uncut versions remained inaccessible for years. The debate centered on historical depiction versus perceived blasphemy. 12. Straw Dog, directed by Sam Peckinpah. This film was caught in the video nasty controversy and restricted during the 80s. By 1990, pressure mounted for reassessment. The BBFC eventually approved it uncut in the mid-90s, reflecting more nuanced approaches to classification. Cultural critics argued earlier censorship underestimated audiences' ability to interpret complex narratives. 13. Child's Play 3. This horror sequel became infamous in the UK after tabloid claims linked it to real-life crime, despite lack of evidence. Moral panic erupted in the early 1990s. The controversy led to temporary withdrawal from some outlets and intensified debates over horror films and youth influence. Though later investigations found no direct connection, the film became symbolic of media scapegoating during times of national tragedy. These films weren't just controversial. They reshaped Britain's censorship laws, challenged moral authority, and forced society to confront uncomfortable questions about art and responsibility. Which of these movies surprised you the most? Do you think censorship protects society or restricts creativity? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into cinematic history, Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next untold Hollywood story.